let's get going. Welcome to the podcast. I am hanging out via Zoom with Lisa Clemens, owner of the Kootenay Yoga School. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me, Mark.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. We were connected through our mutual friend Locke. He took one of your courses, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, he did. He's going to go down in history as one of our all-star participants. He'll be around
Why? Just
forever.
because he did everything wrong, or what happened? What did he do?
You know what? He was honestly the glue of his group. He brought like all the friendship dynamic into the group. He was kind of like the dad. And he actually stayed on and did some projects and some work with us too. So yeah, we love
Nice.
him.
That's a good way to describe him, is the glue. I was listening to his podcast that he does with a few people that I think he met out in Joshua Tree. And that's how I described him when I was talking to him, is in that when they're having those conversations on the podcast, he's the one that he's the string through everything, right? He kind of, I don't know if that's just his nature or if he gets that through, being in radio for so long, but that's definitely him.
Absolutely. And it was that way with him down here with his group. And previous to him taking the course, he was a little bit worried about vegetarian diet, a little bit worried about not having his craft beer.
Yeah.
And he was
Yeah.
very successful in the program. He did a fantastic job and really, really made some cool connections and friendships.
That's awesome. Yeah, I guess that's where him and I have bonded, is over the craft beer over the years. But I think what's cool about him, someone like him being a part of what you do, is it really opens up people's awareness. And I think it's opening it up to a group of people who um, might not think they quote unquote belong in the yoga community, and that's one thing that I've always admired with him, is with him sharing his story. There's a lot of guys out there going like, oh, maybe this is something I can dive into, myself included, to be honest. So I think it's really cool that you guys were nice to him.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know what? Our client base has been changing and modifying throughout the years. I would say back in 2020, it was primarily females, maybe between the ages of like 22 and 35.
Okay.
Um, and it's totally evolved. We have, yeah, people from all over the world, all ages, all backgrounds, people with sports injuries, people who are like working in psychology or nursing, trying to create a little bit more holistic approach.
Right.
Yeah, it's just such a wide variety of people and intentions in being here. It's pretty amazing.
I love
Um,
that.
and what's really cool is they find a way to come together, even though everybody's intentions seemingly is quite different most of the time. It's just really nice.
Well, it's interesting because, you think we live in a world where we get a lot of our news, through social media, for better, for worse, usually for worse. And so we have this sense often that the world is very polarized. So it's neat when you say that, because you have these people with all these different backgrounds coming together, and they connect when it's a group of people that it might not be obvious that they would be able to connect.
That's exactly it.
I love
Yes.
that. Let's go a little bit. I want to kind of talk about what you have and how the heck you started it, because you think about, okay, so Kootenay Yoga School, and then there's a connection to the Joshua Tree, which is where you are now, and then there's a connection to Mexico. um it just seems kind of like you've somehow created your dream lifestyle, I'll say. So talk about what the Kootenay Yoga School is all about, and how you kind of, maybe all three of those layers.
Okay. Actually, yeah, I come from a corporate background out in British Columbia. I was working in credit unions for many years before we started this. It was a fantastic job. What I loved about the job was that it was like our slogan or our motto was people before profit.
Hmm.
Um, and so I learned a lot about that there, but it wasn't a job that was filling me up by any stretch.
Hmm.
Um, in that time frame, I was traveling a lot to Mexico with my kids. We were going there for the winter. Somehow, the credit union was gracious enough to give me that time each winter to go spend an extended period down there. And I just really knew that it was the right time for us to make the big move.
Hmm.
So left down to Mexico, I would say when my kids were like 5 and maybe 12 or 13.
Hmm.
Um, so like 13 or 14 years ago. And I started working in hospitality because that's sort of the entry position down there if you're just settling yourself and
Right.
not. I worked in hospitality for a few years down there, which was really fun, except for that it's kind of not the lifestyle I was looking for. And then I connected with a friend who wanted to transform his hotel businesses into retreat centers, which was just a wonderful experiment. That's been very successful. They're still doing retreats today, very, very well. Beautiful luxury retreats down on Isla Mujeres. Um, but what was happening with the retreats is that we were doing 4 and 5 night retreats almost always. And so the lifestyle around that became pretty repetitive.
Yeah.
Um, and we had a little taste of doing yoga teacher training programs, which was so refreshing because everybody really arrives with a goal. Everybody arrives with sort of some sort of passion around what we're doing and what we're learning. And people are really on task. Like we when we were doing the teacher trainings there, we didn't have people who would accidentally go out and crash their golf cart or accidentally have some run in the downtown, and these sorts of things. So it just was very peaceful. When when that employer kind of decided it was more advantageous for them to do the retreats rather than the teacher trainings, that's when we sort of started kind of walking away from that kind of connected relationship, and we started doing the teacher trainings ourselves. We started in Mexico and actually in British Columbia, where we do a really cool off-grid program. Um, and then Joshua Tree came into play in about 2020, when my son expressed a pretty great desire to be out doing a lot more dirt biking. And the terrain out here is just dreamy for, uh, 14 or 15-year-old kid who's really
Yeah, no
interested.
kidding.
Yeah, so we came out here in 2020 and we just thought it would be for one summer, but it's just been magical. It's beautiful to be out here in the desert. And now we sort of just question if we'll ever leave. Meanwhile, the program in Mexico and British Columbia are kind of, going on throughout the year.
Hmm.
Mexico all throughout the year. And we just sort of bebop around, kind of checking in on things and making sure things are flowing smoothly.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So Joshua Tree, it seems like a unique space because on some level it's like I've never been there, but I visualized kind of like this hippie retreat, like just Joshua Tree in general. And then, like you said, your son loves dirt biking. So now I'm picturing a little bit of like a hillbilly element to it. No, it's just, and then also too, the one thing that we were watching a show, me and my kids the other day, and it was all about aliens. And then Locke and I have talked about aliens. So Joshua Tree seems like a really unique kind of space, like people coming together. Maybe describe what Joshua Tree is for you.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. It's so peaceful out here where we are that it takes you a few days to kind of adjust to how quiet it is,
Hmm.
um, especially if you're from the city or just, even have neighbors. It's beautiful. The landscape is just like something you've never seen before. It's the only spot that I've ever been in my life where the sunrise and the sunset looks different in this viewpoint and in this viewpoint. It's just
Hmm.
really unbelievably beautiful. Of course, it's like the desert kind of vibe, so it's hot and it's dry, but it's a really comfortable climate. Um, Lots of creatures out here, from coyotes to the roadrunners, which is amazing. I didn't even know that they existed in real life.
I
I thought it was just
actually, yeah, I didn't actually know that either. I thought that was just a cartoon thing.
really amazing. But additionally to that, there's tons of people out here off-roading and dirt biking and things like that. Not really near our property, but that's a big thing out in this area. And what's really cool about it is I would say within an hour and a half, you can be at the ocean, in the mountains for snowboarding, lakes and fishing. The desert's right here. The city is less than an hour away. So it's just kind of like a little bit of everything kind of in one spot, which is really, really nice for us.
Yeah, I love that. So you mentioned, and I know Locke's raved about your space in BC. You mentioned it's an off-grid concept. Maybe talk a little bit about that one.
Yeah, you bet. So all of our programs are 14 nights, 15 days. Um, And in that time period, our students are learning about like breaking down all of the poses. They're learning some cueing around how to lead like very inspired classes, going through the anatomy and all of these things. There's a broad selection of topics we cover. But that one program in particular is out in the summer in kind of in Christina Lake BC, in that area, just a few miles outside.
Yeah.
It's one of our most popular programs, and it's completely off grid. So everybody is sleeping in tents. We're cooking outside. We're right by the river. It's really, really magical. It's a pretty elaborate setup and takedown for us. But for our students, I think it feels like they've just kind of walked into like a perfectly arranged adult summer camp.
Yeah.
A lot of painting and rock skipping, like campfires, all sorts of things in the evening. It's just a really, really nice kind of adult summer camp, really.
Yeah. So off grid, um, so like people are tenting, they're what, like how can you make this like 2 weeks off grid is a long time.
And nobody leaves, everybody stays. It's pretty amazing. Yeah, so everybody's sleeping in tents. We just have like a really nice flowing schedule. We have several outdoor classrooms that we've set up. So the students are kind of flowing throughout all of those classrooms. We have outdoor washrooms, which is new to some of our students as well. Somehow, how to use those. And then, yeah, we have solar showers and it's just a really nice outdoor, out in the forest kind of a location. No cell phone service, no electricity. So for these students, it's in a lot of cases the very first time they've ever lived like this. But as I say, nobody leaves, and those groups stay connected for years and years.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, it's really wonderful.
So for you then, how long have you been practicing yoga? When I'm always curious what how people get into it and what about it resonated with them. So for you, when did you start your kind of yoga journey?
So my first exposure to yoga, I would say, was around 2012 when my son started in a small school down in Mexico, and they were starting their day each day with yoga practice. And that sort of created the idea that that could be a way to get my daughter involved in sort of a friendship group down there, because we were living in a small island in Mexico. And in this point, our Spanish skills were pretty low.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so my daughter started attending yoga at a hostel. And that kind of brought yoga around to our whole family. But I would say, in truth and honesty, my bigger passion is the meditation.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
so actually, I lead some of the seminars in the school, but we have expert yoga instructors here that are leading the asanas and walking our students through that, because it's just much better in their wheelhouse. But that was sort of our first exposure to yoga as a family. And then, as I say, when a friend of mine wanted to transform his hotels into yoga retreat centers, that's sort of where we really began learning a lot more and deepening our own practice.
Right. So going back, I guess, to the 12 or the 40-day program, or how many days is it? Sorry.
It's 14 nights, 15 days.
Okay. So what would, because on one hand, a retreat is like a 3 to 4 day kind of like, okay, you go and you do yoga and stuff like that. But this is obviously something totally different. So break down kind of what people do for those 14 days.
You bet. Yes, because it's a lot of hours actually,
Yeah.
pressed into a short period of time, but we're really careful about sort of cycling the activities in a way that doesn't feel like you're either on your feet in asana for too long or in the workbook for too long. We kind of just try and cycle things around. So it just feels like, you're with a group of like-minded people kind of getting through some really compelling topics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what you could kind of expect is 6:30 meditation until 7 a.m. From 7 until 9 a.m. is the morning physical practice, the asana practice. Over breakfast, which is from 9 to 10, we do some journaling and some like reflection time. Everybody gets a shower or whatever, kind of takes care of those things. And then the morning block is either working on philosophy or ethics, or it's working on anatomy, or maybe or maybe like some mantras. So we rotate those topics. So from 10:30 right till 1, you're back in the classroom. Again, we break off for a short lunch, and then after lunch, we're either doing like practicum preparation, some sequencing and cueing practice, which means being on your feet and kind of like trying out being a teacher with a small group, kind of getting used to how that feels and what works and what feels good for your students' bodies. And we're busy right again till dinner. And then in the evening, they usually have independent work. So the days are 12 to 14 hours per day. But we always make time to, when we're in Joshua Tree, get around a campfire, or maybe the meditation is like a walking meditation for a hike through the park. So we can kind of incorporate the environment to make it a little more interesting, kind of feel a little bit more like a retreat. I mean, I think there's a lot of big differences between retreats and trainings. Obviously, there's an educational component that's really strong in a teacher training. But we do our best to kind of incorporate some recreational activities into it too. So it feels fun, doesn't
Yeah.
feel exhausting.
So you mentioned that you're drawn to the meditation kind of aspect of this. And I know talking to Locke, he, I think, was initially attracted to yoga almost from a rehab perspective. So he looked at it, he approached it from a very physical perspective. So um, what do you think? Do you find that everybody seems to approach yoga for different reasons? And I'm curious why you kind of leaned into, because I break things down into mind, body, soul. So if Locke was going at it from a body perspective, I would say you came at it more from a soul perspective. I'm curious why you approached it the way you did. And do you think is it common in your experience that everybody is kind of approaching it initially from a different perspective?
Yeah, I think it's really common that people have different perspectives. We have a lot of people who are coming in with sports injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have a lot of people who are working in social work or nursing who are just trying to implement a more holistic kind of approach. We have a lot of students who kind of fell in love with yoga during COVID times because it allowed for them to get on some Zooms and really connect with people. Um, I think for me, the meditation became kind of the most important piece for me. My daughter had had a car accident,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a pretty serious accident, and I was sort of grabbing at straws about what I can kind of place in my control and what I can't. And I sort of just created this path of like positive affirmations, meditation, and prayer. And I just did those on repeat during that process of when she was hospitalized. And just for me, the benefits, well, not for me, for my daughter and how I felt the benefits were just out of this world. So that's kind of where I direct my energy now, is to kind of putting my energy into those things, although I always loved the morning asana class as well. But it really is true that our clients come with various goals from various backgrounds, with different objectives, different experience as well. And it's all welcomed. It really creates a nice community. And it's almost never that we don't have a group that comes together really like a family.
Mm-hmm.
And it's connected for years and years. It's a pretty special experience to stay 2 weeks with people, where your outside life is kind of just like there's a little bit of a wall between
Mm-hmm.
your outside life and being here. And so these relationships that are formed are just really amazing. And in saying that, there can be a little bit of a transition period back into the outside world. It can be a little harsh out there.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, being off grid for 2 weeks just in and of itself, getting back into society kind of thing. Um, I don't know if this is a weird question, but with the three different places that you have, I camp a lot. And so I think about BC and I love BC. And so being off grid in BC for 2 weeks actually sounds like a lot of fun. But then as you described Joshua Tree, it seems like a very different environment, right? And then Mexico would be different again. Do you feel or do you see that there's a different energy on it at each of the places?
I see commonalities, but I see differences. Um, Mexico, we have, I would say, more European travelers,
Okay.
maybe. And we have a lot of students who go to Mexico who've already taken a teacher training program before, but this is sort of how they um, look after themselves rather than taking kind of a more typical holiday. This is sort of how they travel and they learn and just continue to deepen their practice. Um, I mean, we also just have students who are first timers to the program who are going there. That's probably the larger population. But there are some differences. I mean, of course, there's the differences of the tropical location and the people who are going out to Mexico, they want to be at the beach each day and kind of taking a little bit of tanning in the off moments and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I would say the students that we have coming out here to Joshua Tree, um, they're a pretty hardy stock, I have to say, because being in the desert, I mean, some of the environment can be challenging sometimes. But again, they come with a pretty hardy stock. Um, Maybe the students in Joshua Tree come with a little bit more of a serious kind of goal around teaching,
Hmm.
perhaps. Because a lot of our students come just because they want to deepen their practice and really, really learn how to break down the postures in the best way. Not all of our students want to be teachers. And then Gully, out in the Kootenays, the off-grid program, it's just like the widest of selection of people from all over the world, of all age groups, um, and and really adventurous souls. Because you have to imagine, we actually start meeting 6 weeks before that particular program, before the off-grid program, so that we can have the conversations about like what happens if a bear walks through the camp? How do we react? How do we look after that? What happens if your roommate snores?
Yeah.
If you shared occupancy, because if you're in Joshua Tree and your roommate is snoring, there's several things we can do. We could maybe put up a little bit of a divider. We could get some earplugs. But when you're out in nature with not a sound, if your roommate snores, it's a little bit of a conundrum and you need to be prepared. So we have these pre-meetings, which are really, really helpful to get everybody on the same page and just even learn about what the environment's going to be like. Because
Yeah.
people imagine it, but I don't know that they really fully imagine it.
No, no. And especially like if you've never been to, BC, if you're coming in from somewhere else, it's a different, and I don't think I've ever been off grid for 2 weeks at a time. So even people that are used to the environment, it's, by day three you're going, okay, shit, this is getting real. So yeah. Although I do believe Locke cheated and brought a trailer. Yeah, so he
He
didn't.
did, but he was working, so
Okay,
he
that's fair. We'll give him a pass. So okay, so I keep asking you questions. I feel like this is a good opportunity for me to learn if someday I could actually become a teacher. Um, I had asked you, I think, before we hit record, th are there a lot of people that do this? I'm just kind of new into the yoga myself. Do you see that a lot of people doing this are um, experienced uh, in yoga, or is it kind of a mixed bag of some people have been there for 20 years and some people are like a year into it and going, yeah, I want to do this? Because I'm
yeah,
curious who becomes a teacher. You know what I mean? Like it's one thing to go to a class, but to then say I want to teach is a totally different level.
yeah, and it really is. It's a total mixed bag, but um, you're really immersed in the learning when you're here.
Hmm.
I think that anybody who comes and invests these 2 weeks and is willing to put in the long days and get through that manual and be up and doing morning practice even when it's a little chilly or it's a little hot and these sorts of things, participating in the community, it's really, really possible to get enough learning to lead some really inspired classes. Of course, there's always development down the road and professional development, similar to any teacher that's out there teaching anything or any coach. But our students come to us with a year's worth of experience. Others come to us with 20 years worth of experience. And again, like I say, everybody's kind of goal in taking the program is different. It's really neat to see and understand what brought people here or what their idea around that was. And it's interesting to me, even to this day, to see how they plan to implement it and how they plan to maybe use it in their families or maybe in their church, their community, or their employment. It's really interesting the ideas that are out there, a lot of things I would have never thought about. Before our students come to us, they do attend 10 classes. Um, And then they do a bunch of journaling about that. And the journaling is kind of looking for things like, how did the classroom look? Did the cueing feel good? Did it seem organized? Was the teacher's voice nice, calming, all of these things? Was the classroom in a good temperature? And they make a lot of notes about that. So before they come, they're sort of already thinking about what comprises a good yoga class and how they can involve themselves as a good yoga teacher. So they have a little bit of that background. We do kind of ask that our teachers that are coming into the program be current in a practice for 6 months, which really, that's not that much. Taking two
Hmm.
yoga classes a week or something like this. They can be online or whatever it looks like. But it is helpful if you have that little bit of a background. But as I say, we've got students from all different areas and areas of expertise and levels of experience. So
And so then when they actually, before I ask, what gave you, I'm curious how were you able to get your accreditation, whatever it is, the word I'm looking for there, to be able to do this, to be able to um, run these courses to teach people how to become teachers?
yeah, without boring you to, and everybody tuning off, it's a really lengthy process. You have a lot of policies to develop, obviously some manuals and some programming and some scheduling. You need to bring in a staff team that meets all of the criteria to be leading these sorts of programming and making sure that they align with sort of the philosophies of the school and the working environment and the family that we want to have. And once you have that whole package kind of organized, which in my case, it did take almost 2 years, then you get yourself in touch with the Yoga Alliance and you begin correspondence with them. They review everything, feedback on what could be adjusted or tweaked or how things could be improved. And then from there, they'll license the school. So it's a pretty extensive process. But Yoga Alliance is fantastic to work with. They give us a lot of good feedback about where we're at and how things could be changed or such like that. And so they've been a huge support in getting the school up and running. But yeah, it's a time consuming process. I believe our application was like 800 pages.
Wow. And
Yeah.
then okay, so then your students, when they leave one of your 14-day, 15-day programs, what are they then equipped to do? What is the qualification that they leave with?
That's right. So they're called an RYT 200, which just stands for a registered yoga teacher with 200 hours of programming.
Hmm.
Um, because our school is licensed with Yoga Alliance, they can also register themselves with Yoga Alliance. It's a very quick and easy process. Some employers want that. Others just are very happy that you've attended a registered 200-hour program. They're qualified to lead classes. They're qualified to guide people through classes, either privately, in a studio, in a gym, on a retreat, whatever kind of their intention is or however it lands for them.
Hmm.
Um, and most of our teachers get out there and get teaching in the world pretty quickly after leaving the programming. They're pretty, they're kind of an ambitious group.
Nice.
Um, Support them in finding employment and those sorts of things. So yeah.
Nice. So, and I don't know that you've mentioned this. You have a team that you work with. How do you find your team? Does your daughter work with you?
My daughter does work with me.
Okay.
Actually, she does all of like the social media, the website, and then she manages the kitchen team.
Okay. So when you look at the team that you've assembled, um, was it something that you did intentionally? I'm always curious about culture because sometimes when I look at the team that we have, um, with my one company, Alberta Beer Festivals, it's like I couldn't have intentionally put all these people together. Just it's always interesting how people come together. So how would you describe, the team that you've kind of assembled? Did you do it intentionally, or was it something that just kind of like you look back and go, how did this happen? And then how would you describe the culture of your team?
Okay. Well, the goal when we were creating our team was creating a team that would feel like a family because we know we're going to spend a ton of time together and we travel together all the time. And in some cases, we're sharing housing together, right?
Hmm.
So actually, the staff team that work at the various sites, They're all people that we kind of slowly drug over from other working environments
Yeah.
that in the past. So we kind of were like, let's go. So all of us have worked together in some capacity or another for many years. So it was kind of a no-brainer. I knew that everybody that we were bringing onto the admin and support team was just going to be completely fantastic. Strangely enough, all of the teachers that we have working with us who are just the loveliest human beings, they're just wonderful, not only educated, kind, excellent yoga teachers. They're just like salt of the earth human beings. Yeah, we're just all family. Um, we interviewed, oh golly, like almost 100 teachers. And these were the teachers that just not only had the accreditation involved in leading the education, but just had shining star personalities that we just knew would just like fit with our team dynamic. So we established our admin team first. And then after that, we started implementing or placing in the teachers. So although all of our teachers are quite different in a lot of ways, they just have like a couple things in common, which is that they are just like glowing human beings that can walk into a room and hit it off with anybody who's around them or in front of them. So all of our teachers are wonderful to work with, super easy to work with, and sincerely, all of us, we just feel like a team or a family. We
I
are a
love that.
team family.
So you're one of those unique humans who has really integrated their work and their life. So I have a hard time asking what your work life balance is because it's all kind of the same. So what do you do outside of work then? Like when you're not doing the retreats and stuff like that, what are some of your other kind of passions?
Yeah, well, you know what? We travel a lot. I have two kids. One's now 24, 25, turning 25, and the other just turned 18. And so yeah, we do a lot as a family. I have a large extended family. We do a lot together as much as that we possibly can. Um, and you know, when you have kids, you're traveling around following your kids' hobbies and doing those sorts of things. But quite honestly, we almost don't have days off, but we have a really nice balance of the day. As an example, we're out here working in Joshua Tree, and I'm with my mom. My mom's working with me out here.
Nice.
Um, yeah, it's wonderful. So, you know, we're busy in the morning and then we go for a drive in the afternoon or get out for a walk or a hike or something. So we kind of always have like social or relaxed moments throughout the day. I never feel like I'm at work. I always feel like I'm with a group of friends. And then that group of friends leaves and another group of friends comes. So yeah, there's really no reason for me to try and escape my work life. I really love it. And all of the people I work with are my best friends. So
Yeah. And so when you look at, what I mean, maybe you don't even do this, but do you have a 5-year plan? Do you have a vision for what this could become 5 years from now? Or is it kind of like, let's just keep this thing going?
hmm yeah, let's just keep this thing going. But you know,
Yeah.
sort of the vision for me would be creating more programs that are around professional development after the initial trainings.
Hmm.
We plan to implement a 300-hour program. We've done it before, but we're kind of rewriting that program. The 300-hour program is something that most of our teachers who complete the 200-hour program would maybe want to come back for the future for. It's kind of like the second piece. It's deeper levels of the philosophy, more advanced postures and things like this. So a lot of our students do want to take that in the future. We have a lot of requests for that. So we'd like to get that up and going again. And outside of that 5-year plan, I guess I'm just also waiting to see, you know, my kids are at the age where I'm trying to figure out where they're going to settle themselves.
Yeah.
So waiting on that information.
Good luck with that. You might be waiting a while. Um, so with what you're doing, I know you mentioned the meditation part. Is there a part of the business that you enjoy more than you thought you would? I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and sometimes why they got into something isn't what keeps them there, if that makes sense, right? Are there aspects of what you do that you never thought you would like, and that you love, or vice versa, things that you thought this is why I'm doing it, and now you kind of be like, I'd rather if someone else took care of that part.
Yeah, I always thought in the past that this would evolve, that I'm just on the computer and I'm
Yeah.
just answering emails and those sorts of things. But as time's gone on, I feel doing the practical things, like in this program, my mom and I are doing all the cooking.
Hmm.
So sort of doing the hard work, like out here, building the fire, keeping the wood stove going, the cleaning, those sorts of things. That's the interesting thing about our team. We all do everything.
Hmm.
Um, uh, at the end of the day, I like feeling tired from kind of the physical work. Sometimes, as I say, I had the goal of just working on the computer, but sometimes it's a little hard to shut your brain off when you've been sitting at a computer all day, which you might know.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes it's really nice to just be getting the fresh air, being outside and doing those sorts of things. So I'm enjoying that. And I think that's one of the reasons that I really love California for the program is, I mean, the property is just magical. But yes, it runs on wood heat. Every once in a while, there might be a critter out in the backyard that needs to be encouraged to leave. And so, yeah, you're on your feet running around a bit, and it does feel really good.
And then, so one of the things that I learned, I went to Moab years ago to do some mountain biking. And I was thinking, okay, well, we're going into a desert, even though I think it was October. I think of the desert as being always hot because I'm from Alberta. So I'm just going by the stereotype of, what is it like? Like, does it get cold there? Is that a dumb question? Like, because,
Really cold.
yeah.
It gets really cold. I would say like January and beginning of February, it can be pretty chilly. I would say sometimes even like negative 10 or 15 Celsius.
Oh,
It's
wow.
a little chilly, but the days are always quite warm and pleasant. And what's really nice about the climate, even in the full summer, is that the days are pleasantly warm and the nights are chilly enough to get a really good night's sleep.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a whole nother thing out here. It's
Yeah.
really amazing. And it's really cool as well to watch the animals who are out here. Like you think the desert, you think that there's nothing here, you think that there's no like I just imagined it as dead land,
Hmm.
quite honestly. The ground is just alive. There's creatures of just a million varieties. And you can watch them throughout the day when they get active because the climate's right, when they're really restful. And yeah, people and animals out here really adapt their day around the environment.
So you mentioned that the ground is alive with animals. Here's a segue to my question about aliens. Locke
Oh,
said that the sky is alive with aliens, and I don't believe that he was joking when he said that he believes that he saw a UFO. So is that something that is real? Is that something that's common, or is he just did he slip in some was he drinking some craft beer, we'll say, when he saw the UFOs?
I'm guessing he may have been drinking craft beer, but that wouldn't have changed the story.
Yeah.
Now I had several really peculiar experiences with strange sightings in the sky. For me, I never ever believed in aliens. It was just not even inside my belief structure in the absolute least. But we've had really peculiar experiences, I want to say 3 or 4 times. And even one of the students caught a very bizarre video. I think she maybe sent it to Lachlan.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't think there's any denying that there's alien life out here in the desert. I just don't think there is.
Wow. Okay. So, see, I needed verification because, he's
No,
prone to exaggeration. I'm just kidding. So I know you're busy. I mean, you gotta stoke the fires and all that stuff. So I want to let you go. But one of the things that I really love, and I'm glad that Locke was able to connect us is um through Explore 4, I'm trying to learn, how do I maintain sort of healthy habits, mind, body, soul. And then just through life in general, I love connecting with entrepreneurs. So it just everything that you do is just it just seems to come from such a level of authenticity, and you just seem very, very you're just in that kind of I don't know, you seem to be doing exactly what you love to do. So it's really fun to be able to connect with people like you and share your story. So thank you for doing this.
Well, I really appreciate it, and it's the truth. We just get to do what we love every day, all day, and like some days they're having a sound bowl treatment in the swimming pool, or we're doing a walking meditation, or we're making candles because there's another meditation in the evening. Like we just have fun stuff going on all day, every day. I feel like I'm in some sort of like summer camp for adults. It's wonderful.
I love that so much. I would love to, yeah, one of these days I'm gonna build up the courage to do one of these. My biggest, well, not my biggest thing is, but I have small kids. I actually couldn't imagine being away from them for 2 weeks. So
That's what
that,
a lot of people say. It's hard, but you get yourself so invested in the process and you're so busy in the day, it just goes by really quickly.
yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your story, and I really appreciate it. I was curious how the internet connection was going to be if we were on had like on on dial up still or whatever. But you guys have good internet there, and us up here in northern Canada we have good internet too. So all the stereotypes are being thrown away.
Okay. I really appreciate it. It's been awesome to meet you, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, have a great day in the desert, and yeah, thanks again, and hopefully we'll see each other in person someday.
We will. I'm going to follow up and make sure of that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Take care. Bye bye.